What's up, Infected? Welcome to the Quarantine. In this video I'm going to be covering a game by the name of Iron Curtain. Now, Iron Curtain is essentially Twilight Struggle Light. It narrows the game down to 19 cards. That's it. That's all the game is. 19 cards, some cubes, and then a tracker. So anybody who's familiar with Twilight Struggle is, the game is very daunting to learn and it takes like 3 to 4 hours to play at times. But it emulates the aggressions and the rising tensions in the Cold War, along with the space race. This game is very similar, except it does away with the space race and it, again, narrows it down to just a handful of cards. Alright, the way Iron Curtain starts off is each player is going to be dealt 5 cards, and the remaining cards are going to sit over off to the side. You're going to make a pile of the red and blue cubes, or you can split them up between the players, pretty much however you would like to do. You're going to put Europe, the starting card, out in the middle, and each player is going to get influence on it. So you're going to determine who's going to be USSR and who is going to be the United States. You're going to take the score tracker, you're going to put the little yellow cube here, or the yellow cylinder, right in there in the middle. Now anybody who's played Twilight Struggle knows what this exactly is. This is going to be going this way as USSR gains points. It's going to be going this way as the US scores points. So you effectively get this tug of war. And if USSR gains 3 points and then the US gains 2 points, it goes back that way. So it's a really ingenious little system to keep tension high in a small little area to track score. So how you're going to play the game here is you're going to have a hand of 5 cards to start the game, as you see here. Now certain cards have USSR flag in the top left or the United States flag in the top left. And the way this works is, me as the USSR player, this is not a very optimal hand because only one card directly correlates to me. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose optimally when you're going to play what card. So when you play a card, we'll use the USSR card for example. When I play this, I have 2 options. I can place, first and foremost, I have to play this card adjacent to a card already in play of the same color if possible. So for example, if I were to play East Germany as the US player, I would have to play it here. But if I play Brazil as the USSR, and then on the US players, they play the East Germany card, and I'll explain how all this works in a minute, but they would have to play this here, here, or here. They could not play it here because they're anywhere adjacent to this because it is not of the same color and the color already is on the board. So you have to do this if possible. But going back to our point here, as the USSR player, I played Brazil, and you can either place 2 influence either on or adjacent to cards that had influence at the beginning of your turn. So you can't just chain, like I'm going to put one here and then one down here if there was a card there. I could put influence here or influence here, or you can do the generally better text that's on the card. So in this case, in Cuba, USSR may remove all US influence and then may infiltrate 2 influence cubes, which I'll explain infiltration later. So as of right now, this maybe wasn't the best card for me to play, but for this example, I'm explaining how this works. However, if I were to play, say, this card, and I put it down here, the US player, before I get to do anything, the US player gets to activate the ability that's on this card, and then I can only place these 2 cubes. I don't get the option to use the text down there, so maybe I put one here and one here. I don't know if I made it clear, and it should be noted that if I were to play this card, I don't get to do both. I can do one or the other. Now let me explain the significance of infiltration. So you see here in Europe, the US player has 1 blue cube, and the USSR player has 3 red cubes. So in order for the US player to place a card here because they have control over Europe, they would need to place 2 cubes, or pay 2 cubes essentially, in order to place one of them. So for example, if the player were to be playing 3 blue cubes, they would be able to put 1 in here, but then they have to get rid of one of those cubes because they have to break that control. But now, the USSR player does not have 2 or more cubes more than the US, so they could just place their 3rd one out here just 1 for 1. However, as previously stated, the keyword of infiltrate means that the player can ignore the control effect here where they would have to pay 2 for 1 for the first cube, and they can just infiltrate cubes into there, thus potentially toppling whatever power was on the card. Now when we look at the cards, in the corner here you see how many cards are of that color. So that means there are 2 Central America cards. So what happens is when you place the second card, or the last card in the set, so in this case I place the second card, you're then going to stop what you're doing and score the region. So in this case, US controls the other region, so the US would gain 1 point. Then you're going to see who dominates the entire region. So in this case, again, the US also does, so you're going to gain the point bonus here. So the US would gain a total of 3 points because they controlled Central America. Then you would continue on with the either deciding whether you want the text or whether you want the cubes here to be able to place down. Then, once each player has placed 4 cards, you're going to have 1 remainder card left over. And when the card that you're going to be choosing is your remainder card, you want to try to make sure that it has your flag on it and it has the highest number of cubes here possible. And these are going to be used for endgame scoring, and you're going to give points to whoever has the difference. So in this case, the US has 2, USSR has 4, so the USSR is going to gain 2 points at the end of the game as kind of a bonus score to maybe push them over to the victory. But each player is going to take those cards, you're going to set them off to the side for your endgame scoring. Then you're going to take the remaining cards and you're going to deal 4 cards to each player, and you're going to continue to do this again. Once the final card is played in each player's hand, so you'll have like this, more cards out here, then you're going to trigger the end game. So what you're going to do is you're going to reveal these cards and you're going to give this points to, as I stated earlier. So in this case, the USSR would go up 2 points. Then you're going to score every region on the board, starting with Europe to the Middle East to Asia, Africa, South America, and then finally Central America. And you're going to score each region again. And in scoring them, you're going to score them exactly as though it was the last card played. So for each territory you control, and then your dominance value if you controlled the most in the region. So it needs to be noted that some territories may score twice per round. But keeping in mind, you're going to be putting 2 cards off to the side, 1 for each player. So if you have 2 different territories there, neither of these are going to score until the end of the game. Now at the end of the game, whoever has the most ideology points here wins the game. However, if at any time this yellow marker reaches the end of one side or the other, that player immediately wins the game. And that's how you play Iron Curtain. So first and foremost, I want to mention that Twilight Struggle is one of my favorite 2-player games. The problem with it is reading the instruction manual feels like reading through a field manual, and trust me, I've read through my share of those. They're not very exciting. So this is fairly difficult to pull to the table. I've pulled this to the table more than I've pulled this, and I've had this for 2 weeks. It was sent to me to review. So that alone says, a lot. However, how is the game itself? How does it compare to Twilight Struggle? Overall, for what it is, I think it does a fantastic job at emulating Twilight Struggle, but in a quick 15-20 minute little package. Whereas Twilight Struggle is a very deep, super strategic game for 2 players, you're looking at like 3 hours to play it. Minimum, unless somebody's not paying attention or anything like that, and you wind up sneaking a Europe victory or something. But overall, I think it does a really good job at it, because yes, you're not going to have this super deep strategy where you're massing troops and massing influence in Africa, and somebody plays the Bush War and just takes it all away, and you're not going to have times like that you have with Twilight Struggle, where you get these very long, memorable games. But you are going to get a bite-sized, pocket-sized, fun little strategy game that has a surprising amount of strategy. Because just like Twilight Struggle, if your hand looks like this and you're a US player, you have a really hard decision on your hands, because you're gonna have to play them. It's just a matter of when. This is the only card that helps you. These cards suck for you. So when do you play them? Read the abilities on the card. If you play this right now, is the USSR player really going to be able to benefit from it? And that's when you have to play this card, when it's least optimal to play it. Because yes, you're gonna help the USSR player, but the shoe fits on the other foot. Because your hand looks like this, USSR player probably looks exactly opposite. They're probably standing at a bunch of US cards thinking about the same stuff you are. However, in Twilight Struggle, you have the ability to carry one card, over to the next phase with you. You also have, the space race you can throw cards at. So you don't have that. To be honest, I think I would have liked to maybe have a few more cards that allows you to maybe hold on to that one card, because I really don't want to play this right now. Maybe I'll play it later to give you a little bit more freedom of strategy, because you're going to be playing every card in the game except for 2. So that's a little bit of a downer. I would have liked to have seen maybe a few more cards. Not a lot. I love the fact that the game is so simple and so small. But I would have liked to have seen a couple extra cards so you can carry cards from the first round to the next. So maybe you don't have to play it, or maybe you can play it in a more optimal time, or maybe another way to get rid of some cards, or something like that. But that's more me just wishful thinking. And that really also covers the only negative I really had with the game, is the fact that every card is going to have to be played. And so there's a little bit less strategy involved in the game than there is in something like Twilight Struggle. So, because you are going to be playing every card, so there's no way to get rid of this card, because that's, with Twilight Struggle, if you had this really bomb card for your opponent that you do not want to play because it's going to basically give them the victory, you could take that card and you can throw it at the space race. That way, that was one card you didn't have to deal with. Or you can take that card and go, I'm just going to hold on to this. Or if it's like later on, you go, I need this card for my strategy, you can carry it. There's nothing like that in this game. And that does bring it down a little bit of a notch. But, other than that, for what you're getting, for just a very small, bite-sized, light version of Twilight Struggle that plays in 20 minutes, you can't beat it. I recommend picking it up if you like Twilight Struggle, but it never gets to come to the table. It's definitely a game that's going to be added to my collection. Anyways, that is my review for Iron Curtain. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time in the Quarantine.